Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. At this time, please find your seats and take a moment to turn off or silence all electronic devices. Throughout the ceremony, you will be given cues to stand and be seated at appropriate times. As a reminder, during the playing of arrival fanfare, ruffles and flourishes, and our national anthem, military members should stand at attention, and civilian guests should place their right hands over their hearts. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Today, we pay special tribute to Colonel Dillon R. Patterson on the occasion of his retirement from the United States Air Force. We are honored to have with us as our presiding official to today's ceremony the Vice Chief of Staff of the United States Air Force, General James C. Slife. Ladies and gentlemen, please stand for the entrance of the official party, playing of ruffles and flourishes, the national anthem, followed by the invocation given by Chaplain Captain Gary E. Buller.
Let us pray. God, we thank you for this great day that you allowed us to see and the many blessings you have given us. We come to you with deep gratitude in our hearts for the many gifts and abilities that you have given us daily. Today, we thank you for allowing us to honor your son, Colonel Dillon Patterson. We thank you for allowing him the many years of service in the military. We thank you for your love, protection, grace, mercy, and guidance that you have given him and his family throughout his career. God, we thank you for allowing him to serve as a mentor and a leader to our current and future airmen within the United States Air Force. Father, we ask that you continue to provide him as he faces a new chapter in his life that we call retirement. Help him to know that this chapter of his life is coming to a close, but a new chapter of his life starts today. We thank you and ask that you continue to bless him in ways that eyes have not seen, ears have not heard, neither has entered into his heart what you have for his life. We know that we can make plans, but it's you who order our steps. We give you thanks, honor, and glory. In Christ's name we pray. Amen.
Thank you, Chaplain Butler. Ladies and gentlemen, please be seated. Today, sharing this special occasion are many family, friends, and special guests. We ask that you please hold a pause till the end. We are extremely honored to have in attendance Colonel Patterson's family, which includes his wife, Jill Patterson, his sons, Isaiah and Elijah Patterson, daughters, Gannett and Mady Patterson, Palmer Owens, Mesra Indishaw, and son-in-law, Ephraim Indishaw. We would also like to welcome his special guests, Brigadier General Bradley Cox, Deputy Adjutant General, Arkansas National Guard, Brigadier General Michael Henderson, Director of Joint Staff, Arkansas National Guard, Colonel Jay Spahn, Commander, 188th Wing, Arkansas Air National Guard, Colonel Kit Parker, Deputy Commander, 188th Arkansas Air National Guard, Colonel Michael Edmonston, Commander, Air Force Element, Fort Leavenworth, Kansas. We would also like to welcome all commanders, chiefs, other family, friends, and military and civilian guests who are here today to share in this special occasion. Ladies and gentlemen, it is now my distinct pleasure to introduce to you the presiding official of today's ceremony, General James C. Slife.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for being here. Thank you all for coming over at Little Rock. Yeah, thanks for making the drive over from Little Rock for this. What a privilege it is to be with you. Dillon, thanks for giving me the opportunity to participate today. There are a lot of 23-year colonels that retire every year in the Air Force. But this is the one that I decided I wanted to come and be a participant in the ceremony. And it is for the sole reason that Dillon Patterson is the most principled officer I've met in 35 years of service. He's been an inspiration to me personally for probably 14 years, 15 years. A little more than a third of my career, and our careers have intersected and diverged and intersected and diverged over time. But when he told me he intended to retire and asked me if I'd be willing to participate, the answer was yes. And then I had to go figure out what the calendar implications of that were. But there's no place I'd rather be. So thanks again for letting me be here. Colonel Edmonston, good to see you again. Just for clarity for the audience, the Air Force Element Commander at Fort Leavenworth, is that the school or the prison? It is the school. Oh, okay, good. The school. I just want to make sure we didn't need to, keep an eye on you to make sure you didn't escape or something while you were here. Well, hey, retirement ceremonies are always a lot of fun, I think, because, most of us, to include the family, you get to see intersections of a career. You're assigned with somebody for a few years, and then you go off and do something else. And it's not until you get to the retirement ceremony where somebody actually gets to put the whole career together, and you get to actually get the total arc of somebody's service. And so I'm really looking forward to sharing with you some of the data points along the way. And Dillon has got us recording here for family that can't be here. And so, for a lot of the family members, to include the kids, you just see Dad, in this case, in the morning on the way to work, and at the end of the day when Dad comes home, and everything in the middle is just kind of he's at work. And you don't actually know what any of that entails. And so really the opportunity to talk a little bit about the arc of that career is a real privilege. So relax, take your shoes off if you need to. We won't be here for more than two hours, 2.5 max. Dillon graduates from college in the summer of 2001 from Embry-Riddle with a degree in electrical engineering. So summer of 2001, this is prior to 9/11, and he is detailed his first thing while he is awaiting pilot training. He's at Luke Air Force Base, does that for a little less than a year, and then he goes to pilot training in 2002 to 2003 at Shepherd Air Force Base. And so this is the Euro-NATO Joint Jet Pilot Training Base. It is, if you're not familiar with it, the Euro-NATO program is highly, highly competitive. There's very few Americans that actually get into that pilot training program. It's very competitive. It's less than 20% of all the people we send to pilot training every year go to this. So highly competitive. So obviously he had done well in his ROTC program. They saw a lot of potential, so off he goes, and he gets an assignment to be a B-1 pilot coming out of pilot training. And so from pilot training, does a little survival school and all that stuff, and then goes to Dyess Air Force Base in Texas, where he's going to learn to be a B-1 pilot. So as he's going through B-1 training, it's a little bit extended due to some medical issues and so forth. But while he is at pilot training, again, this is immediately after 9/11, while he's in the B-1 training program, our demand for RPAs started to go through the roof. We didn't have near the capacity we needed inside the Air Force. And so we're looking for people to go, and we're going to rapidly grow this RPA enterprise in the Air Force. And so they ask, hey, is anybody interested in doing this? And the way Dillon kind of describes it, he is, at this point, he is more attracted to the idea of being a warrior than he is of, the idea of aviation in general. And so he sees that this is an in-demand thing in the emerging global war on terror. And so he raises his hand and says, hey, I want to go and do that. And so he goes to MQ1 training, and he gets the first Form 8. This is the piece of paper that qualifies you to be checked out and fly a particular kind of aircraft. Gets first, gets a Form 8 in the MQ1. And so this becomes kind of a prototype for what later became our RPA career field. The 18Xs, probably maybe a few 18Xs in the room. And so he's kind of one of the pathfinders for this. And so from there, he gets assigned to an MQ1 unit at Nellis, the 3rd Special Operations Squadron. And this is 2006. You get to Nellis, I think. Spends a couple of years at Nellis in the 3rd Special Operations Squadron, operating at an absolute breakneck kind of tempo. And so this is the kind of tempo where you don't see the sunshine for about a 3-year period because you're 12 on, 12 off, flying every night, and you just don't ever get to see the sunshine. You don't ever get to see what's going on at home. At the time, they were operating on a flight duty hours waiver, and so typically we restrict aircrew to how many hours in every 30-day period they can fly. I think it's around 130 hours or something. They had a waiver up to 200 hours every 30-day period, and so they're all flying 200 hours every 30 days. I mean, this is my, I'm a respectable, pilot from my early years. My high time month of flying, I think, was in Bosnia. It was when we were in and out of Bosnia and Kosovo and all that. And I think I flew an 85-hour month once. They were flying 200 hours a month, month in and month out. So absolutely breakneck tempo, with a collection of captains that are working as hard as they've ever worked, and Dillon describes as the most rewarding work he ever did with this group of captains. Certainly, Kip, you were in that group. Frog, Manas, Dave Blair, There's a handful of these folks that were carrying the load of the 3rd SOS. And somewhere in the middle of this, we made the decision that the 3rd Special Operations Squadron was a geographically separated unit up at Nellis, and so we're going to bring it into one of our Special Operations wings, and it was going to go to Cannon Air Force Base in East New Mexico. And so in 2008, the 3rd SOS moves from Nellis down to Cannon, and so they're on Cannon Air Force Base, getting themselves established there. And this is, again, at a time of rapid growth. And frankly, our Air Force, in an Air Force run by pilots, the idea of airplanes without pilots in them is a little culturally objectionable, I think. And so not a lot of enthusiasm at that time for manning these units. And so it became very difficult to send people to these units. And so you had this core of high talent captains trying to stay focused on their mission, and they're getting this steady influx of new pilots that didn't want to be there. They were ticked off about it. The Air Force lied to them. How come, they got this assignment? And I mean, it was just absolutely a toxic stew of kind of situation. Made worse, frankly, by the fact that the people that we tended to put in command at that time were the people that were left over on the command list for whatever their primary platform was. And so we don't have a F-16 for you to fly, but hey, why don't you go do this other thing instead? And so, you get squadron level leadership that was, not the highest quality. You get a bunch of people in the unit that don't really want to be there, and then you combine that with a command, Air Force Special Operations Command, that didn't know anything about the RPA business. And so you've got this, unit basically operating autonomously with very little leadership oversight, or frankly leadership attention and support. And it was absolutely the most difficult leadership challenge I've ever personally seen in my life. So I show up at Cannon. Dillon's there from 2008, 2011. I showed up in early 2010 and looked at this and said, "This is a absolute mess. I'm gonna check out with these guys." Start flying with the MQ-1s and see if I can somehow make a difference. And somewhere early in 2010, I get I'm an ops group commander at the time, and I get a knock on the door. "Hey sir, you got a minute?" And I look up, and it's some captain that I'd never seen before, and I said, "Sure, Captain, come on in. What can I do for you?" And the conversation starts with, "Sir, I'm probably going to end my career by doing this, but I have to tell you something." And as a group commander, when somebody starts a conversation with, "I'm probably about to end my career," it's like, "Okay, you have my attention. I can't wait to watch you end your career, Captain. Go right ahead." And it's Captain Dillon Patterson. And he comes into my office, and he says, "Sir, we have got crews flying that are unqualified. They're carrying munitions that they're not checked out to employ. We have people that are DNIF, that they're not supposed to be flying because they're not medically clear to fly. They're on the schedule. We have people flying that are non-current." He goes, "We are going to kill somebody that we're not supposed to kill, and it's going to be all our fault." And wow, and so this feels like a Air War College practical exam of some sort. Colonel Slife, you were sitting in your office one day, and a captain comes in and tells you that the unit's about to kill somebody. What do you do? Ah! And so, I said, "Well, okay, I guess I know what I'm doing this evening." And so I went and gathered a group of subject matter experts on all these things, for Stanival, flight management, kind of the, one Charlie Oscars, gathered the whole team. I said, come on, we're going to the third SOS, and none of us are going home until we can convince ourselves that the third SOS is operating on a firm footing. And I mean, we just showed up at the squadron and, pulled out all the paperwork and looked at the flying schedule and started looking, and it was every bit as bad as Captain Patterson said. It was every bit as bad as Captain Patterson said. And we were there until about 3 o'clock in the morning, sorting through this stuff. And there were some reliefs of command that followed shortly after. And I went to the command and got the very best, the top 2 people on our command screening list. I said, I'm not taking the leftovers. I want the top 2 people on the list, and that's who we're going to put into this squadron. And we did, and it started a turnaround in the AFSOC MQ-1 enterprise that has endured to this day. It's a magnificent community these days. And that all started because Captain Patterson had the moral courage to raise his hand and say, this is not right. And he was absolutely correct. And it wasn't all their fault. It was lack of leadership attention. It was lack of command oversight. I mean, there were all kinds of failures up the chain of command that we had to address. But I mean, that was a absolute career-defining display of moral courage, I thought. And so a year later or so, Captain Patterson comes to me and says, hey, sir, I want to go fly the RQ-170. And so if you're familiar with it, the RQ-170, at the time it was in a classified program. We didn't talk about it, but it's a stealthy RPA platform. It was out in the desert in Nevada at a very remote site in Tonopah. And the RQ-170 was there, and Dillon comes in and says, hey, sir, I want to go fly the RQ-170. And I'm like, well, why? Why would you leave? You're making such a difference here. Well, I just got to have a change of scenery, and, this is what I want to do. And so we worked it out, and he got an assignment to go fly RQ-170s. And he would tell you now that what he really needed was about 3 weeks of leave, and what he got was a career change out of that deal. But went up in 2011 to 2012, got to fly the RQ-170, did a deployment for the first time as a deployed commander. Fantastic experience. He's got operators, maintenance, the support structure, intel. He's got it all under his command while he's deployed. Highly gratifying experience. Does that for a year and decides, hey, my family needs a different lifestyle. I'm going to transition to the Air National Guard. And so he transitions to the Air Guard in Arizona, and this is 12 through 15. He's in Arizona flying MQ-1s there. He's a flight commander in the wing. He's the #1 major in the ops group for 3 consecutive years. I meant to mention when we were at Cannon, one of the things he did, and this is really for the family and certainly the family on the recording. You never really know how they're doing, right? I mean, you go, he seems to be doing fine in his career. You never really know. So one of the early marks for an officer, you go to Squadron Officer School. Dillon goes Squadron Officer School and is a distinguished graduate, which is top 10% of essentially the entire Air Force peer group. So he's distinguishing himself. He's not just doing great in the squadron, but when you put him out amongst a cross section of the Air Force, he is identified as being kind of in the top 10% of that peer group. So continues to do great. He goes to Arizona. He's a flight commander there for 3 years, and is this is 12 to 15 and does great. He's the #1 major in in the wing for 3 consecutive years. I don't know that I've ever seen that before. Normally there's some, you start out as the number 8, and then you're number 6, and then you're number 4 or something. But he was number 1 from the day he showed up till the day he left for 3 years, from 8 to 15, and then selected to go to Command and Staff College. And so this is again largely for context. We typically send about our top 15 to 20% of people to Command and Staff College, and so Dillon is in that cohort. So he, again, is identified as one of the best in his cohort. He goes to the College of Naval Command and Staff, and he is once again designated as a distinguished graduate. So he's in the top 10% of the top 20%, so whatever that means. It's 2 or something. I think it's about 2%. But anyway, he's doing really well is kind of the key point. And so this is from 15 to 16 that he's there. He's selected to work for the director of the Air National Guard in the Pentagon on his director's action group, and so he gets to do a little bit of time in the Pentagon there from 16 to 17, I think, and works for General Rice when he was the director of the Air National Guard. Gets to meet a couple of great mentors in General Pierce and General Sasseville. General Sasseville just retired as the vice chief of the National Guard Bureau. A couple of fantastic officers that kind of took Dillon under his wing, helped him out there, and he gets selected to go back to his unit in Arizona as a squadron commander. He asked to be considered for the support squadron, the operational support squadron there. Was hired into that, and he wanted to do that because of the kind of diversity of the mission in an OSS. And so if you're familiar with that, you've got 19 different career fields or something all inside of one squadron. It's an extraordinarily diverse and rewarding mission. And so he's the OSS commander from 17 to 19. I think my years are still straight. 17 to 19, he's the OSS commander at Tucson. He's the best squadron commander in the wing, and is again selected for a professional education opportunity. And so he's going to go do a fellowship in Harvard for a year. And again, just for context, this is about a top 10% of a peer group will get to go and do one of these kind of things. And so again, continues to stand out, goes off to Harvard for a year. This is about 2/3 of the way into the year we get into COVID, and so things get a little bit squirrely there, but he got to spend time with some of the leading academics, to include not so much an academic, but the former chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General Dunford. Used to come and spend about an hour with them every week, all the military fellows that were there at Harvard that year. And so just an absolutely magnificent education. And his assignment is a little gooned up coming out of there, because everybody is teleworking now by the summer of 20, and because everybody's teleworking, they have a hard time generating orders and all that stuff. And so ultimately it's just, well, go back to the unit you came from and we'll figure it out from there. And so back to Arizona. So now he's already been a squadron commander. So now he shows back up as a lieutenant colonel that's already been a squadron commander, and they just put him to work flying. That is, if you're a lieutenant colonel and you can get work doing nothing but flying, that's good work. You should hang on to that if you can get it. And so Dillon goes to work there, and then has the opportunity coming out of there to come be the MSG commander here, or go to the Office of Net Assessments, which is a prestigious place to work in the Pentagon, but it is a place to work in the Pentagon. And so given a choice between working at a place in the Pentagon or being the commander of the MSG here in Fort Smith, pretty easy choice. Dillon decided to come here, where he served for a couple of years as the MSG commander before becoming the wing commander. So absolutely spectacular career. I would point out that In the 11-ish years that he was in the active duty Air Force, Dillon averaged one move every 2.2 years. And after he went to the Air National Guard because he wanted some family stability, his moves averaged 1.5 years between moves. So, yeah, winning. Winning there, Dillon. So got to spend, got to move about every year and a half to 2 years. So God bless you, Jill. That's hard work. 3,300 flying hours, 21 aerial achievement medals. Guy's got operational credibility. Obviously, he's got academic bona fides. Did great work at the strategic level there at the Pentagon. What a magnificent career arc. And so it's a real privilege to be able to be here with you, share some of that with your friends and family, and have the opportunity to join you for the ceremony today. So thank you very much. Dillon, if you would join us, and ladies and gentlemen, if you'll rise, I think there is an order of some kind.
Thank you, General Slive. Attention to orders. Reserve Order number AA 510, dated 21 March 2024. Colonel Dillon R. Patterson, effective 1 August 2024. You are relieved from your present reserve assignment and retired per Air Force Instruction 36-3203 in Title 10, United States Code, Section 9311. You will be transferred to the Retired Reserve, and your name will be placed on the United States Air Force Retired List in the grade of Colonel, by order of the Secretary of the Air Force. Ladies and gentlemen, please be seated. At this time, Colonel Patterson will now be presented with a certificate of retirement from the Chief of Staff of the United States Air Force and the Director of the Air National Guard. It reads, Certificate of Retirement from the Armed Forces of the United States of America. To all who shall see these presents, greeting. This is to certify that Colonel Dillon R. Patterson, having served faithfully and honorably, was retired from the United States Air Force on the first day of August 2024. Signed, Michael Lowe, Lieutenant General, Director of the Air National Guard, and General David Alvin, Chief of Staff, United States Air Force. At this time, we would like to invite Colonel Patterson's wife, Jill Patterson, to please come forward for the retirement pin presentation. The retirement pin is presented at the retirement ceremony to signify membership in an elite organization of men and women that have served the United States Air Force and their country with pride, honor, and distinction in wartime and peace. At this time, Mrs. Patterson will be presented with a certificate of appreciation from the Chief of Staff of the United States Air Force and the Director of the Air National Guard. It reads, Certificate of Appreciation from the United States Air Force. In grateful appreciation, the United States Air Force presents this certificate of recognition to Jill Patterson for the commitment and numerous contributions that made positive impacts to the nation's defense. Thank you for the support which gave strength and purpose to your spouse's service. Given this 3rd day of July, 2024, signed Michael Lowe, Lieutenant General, Director of the Air National Guard, and General David Alvin, Chief of Staff, United States Air Force. Thank you, Mrs. Patterson. And at this time, Colonel Parker would like to come forward to present a token of appreciation to Colonel Patterson.
Can't count how many of these you've slung in combat, but want to present this to you, obviously, with such a leader, 48 that gave you slung out for all the things you've done, not just when you're here,
Thank you, Colonel Parker. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my pleasure to present to you, for the first time, Colonel Dillon R. Patterson, United States Air Force, retired.
All right. I'd like to say first, thank you for everybody that helped put the event on today. For Major Hudson, Sergeant Gills, the PA team up there in the booth, Sid, who has spent more time in the simulator with me than probably any other human has been in a simulator in the history of the Air Force. So Sid, thanks for everything. Chaplain Butler, I don't know where you snuck off to, but thanks for being here today. Most importantly, thanks for the care that you give to our airmen every day. General Slife, I thought I would say something like, I really understand how much time you've given up by coming here, but I don't think any of us do really understand the value of your time coming out here today. It means a lot to me personally, but I want to thank you for what you do for every airman out there in the Air Force over your entirety of your career, because most people will never understand what happens, whether it's your time at headquarters, AFSOC, or SOCOM, or in the Pentagon, the things that our senior leaders do every day, hacking away at policy, things that most of us don't want to go do, makes a difference to 18-year-old airmen who are coming in the service right now. So thank you personally for being here today, but thank you for what you've done throughout your entire career. It means a lot more to me, and it's always been something that inspired me. It means a lot more because my son Isaiah is he's off to join the United States Marine Corps, so he's going to boot camp in 12 days. So the youngest Marine, yeah, absolutely, yeah. So it's my hope and prayer that that in the Marine Corps they'll have leaders like General Slife to lead those institutions well, because that's what our young service members deserve. We ask them to do something that's difficult. We ask them to leave their families. We ask them to train ungodly hours, and it's leaders who spend time doing the hard intellectual work and the hard physical work. And so you're a generational leader, and I appreciate everything you've done. So thank you for being here today. To the front row, General Cox, General Henderson. That star looks great on you, sir, by the way. Thank you guys for coming up today and representing Joint Force Headquarters. Evil, thank you for allowing me to be here and use your installation, and for receiving the General. I really appreciate it. Mike, thank you for driving down. It's been great. Colonel Edmonston and I, we started out in pilot training together. So we flew at Shepherd together, and then like Kip, we were in the 3rd SOS, so it's been a long journey, and I appreciate you being here today. Squeakers, thank you for representing the ops group. I noticed that Che, I see here, Med Group, there's nobody here from ISR Group, so they are instantly, well, you're not in the front row, so you're my least favorite group now on this base. But thank you guys for being here. To the rest of you in the crowd, it's late in the afternoon on the day before a holiday, which can turn into a 4-day weekend, so thank you for coming out here. I really don't deserve the honor of your time, but I appreciate it very much. Kip, you're a great friend, you're a great commander, you're a great leader, and you're a heck of a warrior. So thank you for being here today. And you look great in blues, by the way. So he was gonna wear his OCPs. My wife made him wear blues, so I appreciate it. So thank you. To the family, I need to start with there's a lot of my family that's not here. We got a big crowd down front. We're a gaggle everywhere we go. But I have a daughter and a son-in-law and 2 grandkids who aren't here. My parents, Barry and Marilyn Patterson, and my in-laws, Mike and Linda Palmer, are also not able to be here today. And as General Slife said, we have a pretty good record. We don't have the record in the Air Force for the highest rate of moves, but we've done our share of PCSing around. And when you've got a crowd like this, that takes an effort. In fact, I get to tell a Captain Patterson OG Colonel Slife story. When I moved from Cannon back to Nevada to go to the RQ-170 world, I was I was exactly 5 weeks out from a PCS, which means you're trying to sell a house, you're making arrangements to get packed up, you're trying to figure out where you're going to live. And Colonel Parker was in Arba-Minch, Ethiopia, helping to get the first ever MQ-9 LRE up and running on the AFRICOM AOR. And our friend Frog was in Djibouti working the tactics. And Colonel Slife then calls me in his office and goes, "Hey, Dillon, we got a problem. They don't have any of the leadership stuff set up. They're not ready to command this mission at the AOC in Africa. I need an LNO out there. I need you to hop on a plane and go out there." And this is no kidding, a Friday afternoon. He says, I need you in Germany on Monday at the AOC. And I remember looking at him going, "Sir, you know I'm moving in 5 weeks." And he's like, "Yeah, I only need you there for 4. So that's, I mean, what's the problem, right? The math is good. The math is good, right? That's a simple anecdote of what the family goes through when you live a life dedicated to service. We go to Home Depot, we get a 10% discount, or we go out to eat and we get comped a meal here in Fort Smith because people say thank you for your service and they want to honor you for your sacrifice. But as I was really thinking about this, it's the life you don't live that your family really sacrifices. In our family, we like to watch movies, and one of our kind of our traditions in our family is a series called Father the Bride. It's got Steve Martin, and he plays this character called George Banks, and George's mantra is that he just loves the simple life. He owns a small business. He's got a wife, 2 kids, beautiful house, and he just wants the simple life. And it's a comedy of things spiraling out of control. And I think that's what my wife always wanted. She wanted to raise a family in our hometown near our grandparents and our cousins and siblings and everything. And that would have been the gift that I could have given her. But instead, she chose to follow me. My kids didn't have a choice in it. They just got stuck with the whole deal, right? But it's this life that could have been that you give up when you choose to serve. And when you put that in the balance of what could have been versus what we had, it can initially look tough, right? You can look back and think, man, was this all worth it? But then I think about the experiences we had. I have 3 sons-in-laws. 2 of them, my daughters met because of our military service, and we're moving around. My other one met because I got a daughter who's adventurous and likes to travel the world on her own. We got to live at some of the greatest places. We lived at Navy Newport, and my son and I got to go learn how to sail at the MWR, and we got to live in Washington, D.C., and go see the National Christmas tree on the Capitol grounds. And there's all these things that would have never been had we chosen the simple life. And that starts to make the balance look pretty good. The balance starts to get pretty good. And then you throw into that the relationships that you have. You mentioned, Dave Blair and Frog Jimenez, and these are guys that I'm still incredibly close to. Men who, if you have a difficult time, you can pick up the phone to call. When Jill and I travel across the country, doesn't matter what interstate we take, somewhere along the way, there's a town we can stop, and there's going to be somebody with whom we served that we may not have seen for 7-8 years. Maybe you only talk to them once a year. But when you step into their living room, it's going to be it's the relationships that take that balance and make this life worth living. The last thing I think of is the service. You can look at what we do, and you can have a bad attitude about it, and you can tell stories about how hard it is. Or you can look at the youngest airman coming in and say, I've had an opportunity to serve. I've had an opportunity to serve side by side. I've had an opportunity to lead. And what really takes that balance and says this was a life worth living is the privilege to put this uniform on. Thank you.
Thank you, Colonel Patterson. Colonel Patterson, the men and women of the United States Air Force and Arkansas Air National Guard are proud to have served with you. Your knowledge, wisdom, dedication, and friendship will be sorely missed by all. We wish you well as you begin this new chapter in your life. Please join us in congratulating Colonel Patterson and his family for their many contributions to the defense of our nation through a receiving line and for light refreshments immediately following the ceremony in the rear of the room. Please remain standing for the singing of the Air Force song, followed by the departure of our official party. Ladies and gentlemen, this concludes today's ceremony. Thank you for attending and have a wonderful day.